My name is Haley. I made a mistake. I married too young. I thought love was enough. I believed in promises, smiles, and warm hands. But real life is harder than I imagined. I was only 19 when I married Henry, and now, at 29, I live with regret. I live in a small town in Michigan, not far from Grand Rapids. I work in the front office of a school. I help with papers and answer the phone. People see me smile every day, but at home, my smile fades. No one there asks how I feel. I met Henry at a diner near my job. He worked as a mechanic at a garage down the street. He had a strong build, short brown hair, and loud confidence. He made jokes. He called me Sunshine after just 2 days. At first, I thought he was joking too much, but then I started to like the way he looked at me, like I was special. He asked me out after 1 week. After 2 months, he said, "Let's get married." I remember his exact words. "Why wait, Haley? We're happy. Let's just do it." At the time, I wanted to leave my parents' house. My mom and dad fought every night. I couldn't sleep. I thought, maybe marriage will save me. Maybe this is my chance at a better life. We got married on a rainy Friday. No big dress, no party, just a courthouse, 2 rings, and 1 photo. I wore a blue dress and held a white flower. Henry wore jeans and a clean shirt. He said, "You look perfect." That one sentence made me feel like I had done the right thing. We moved into a small apartment above a pizza shop. The floors creaked. The walls were thin. But I was happy. I bought curtains and small candles. I cooked dinner every evening. I told myself, we're building something. At first, Henry was kind. He brought me coffee in the mornings. He kissed my cheek when I cleaned the dishes. He told me jokes and called me beautiful. But that didn't last long. After just 3 months, things began to change. He started coming home late. He stopped smiling when he saw me. When I asked questions, he got cold. I remember one evening clearly. I made chicken and mashed potatoes, his favorite. I wore the dress he once liked. I lit a candle and waited. He walked in, dropped his keys, and said, "Why is it dark in here?" I smiled. "I thought you'd like a nice dinner." He looked at the food. "Looks fine," he said, then turned on the TV. He didn't ask how my day was. He didn't notice the candle. He didn't touch his plate for 10 minutes. I ate quietly, pretending everything was normal. After dinner, he fell asleep on the couch. I sat in the kitchen alone, staring at my cold food. I asked myself, is this how love is supposed to feel? As weeks passed, he talked less and complained more. He said I was boring. He said I didn't understand him. He called me too soft. I cleaned, worked, cooked, smiled. But he didn't seem to care. One Saturday, I asked if we could go to the lake. It was sunny, and I missed fresh air. He said, "I'm not in the mood, Haley. You always want something." I said, "I just want a day with you." He laughed. then go alone. I felt like I didn't exist. A month later, I came home early. I had left work at noon because of a small fever. I bought cookies on the way home. I thought maybe we could have tea together. When I opened the apartment door, I heard a woman laughing. I walked in. A woman with red hair sat on our couch. Henry sat next to her. He looked up, surprised. "You're home?" he said. She stood fast, picked up her purse, and left without saying a word. I looked at Henry. "Who was she?" he said. "Just a friend." I asked. "Do all your friends sit that close and laugh like that?" He shrugged. "You're making this a thing." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just went into the bedroom and closed the door. That night, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. Henry didn't say sorry. He didn't explain. He just turned off the light and slept. The next morning, I told him, "That hurt me, Henry. I feel like I don't matter." He replied, "Then maybe you shouldn't be here." That broke me. I packed a small bag and went to my friend Madison's house. She gave me tea and a warm blanket. She said, "You don't deserve this." I stayed with her for 5 days. I waited for a text, a call, an apology. Nothing came. I went back to the apartment to talk, but when I walked in, the living room looked different. My books were in a box. Our wedding photo was gone. I asked, "What is this?" Henry didn't even look up from his phone. He said, "I thought you left." I said, "I needed time. I wanted to fix this." He said, "I'm not trying anymore." I stood in the doorway and felt a deep silence inside me. That was the moment I knew it was over. I moved out that night. I cried in Madison's car. I felt lost, but I also felt free. I had no plan, no home, and no love. But I had myself. And for the first time in years, I could hear my own thoughts again. After I left Henry, I moved in with Madison. Her apartment was small, but it felt warm. She gave me clean towels and made space in her closet for my things. I slept on her sofa at first, then later in the small guest room when her cousin moved out. I felt lucky to have a friend like her. I cried a lot that first week. Not loud crying, just small tears when no one was looking. I cried when I washed dishes. I cried while folding my clothes. I cried in the shower where no one could hear me. I didn't miss Henry exactly. I missed the life I thought we had. I still wore my wedding ring. I looked at it when I felt confused. I asked myself, did I fail? Or did he give up? I didn't have the answer yet. All I knew was that something inside me had broken. One morning, Madison handed me a cup of coffee. She said, "You don't have to stay stuck in that past. You didn't break this alone." Her words stayed in my mind. I started going to work again. I answered phones. I filed papers. I smiled at the students. But everything felt different. I wasn't the same Haley anymore. Something inside me had changed. After work, I came home to silence. Madison often worked late. I made simple dinners like soup or sandwiches. I started reading again. I hadn't touched a book in 2 years. Henry always said reading was boring. Now I could read in peace. Some nights I watched the sky from the window. I saw stars and listened to cars drive past. I wondered where people were going. I wondered if they were happy. I asked myself, will I be happy again? One evening, I opened an old box from my closet. Inside were letters I wrote when I was younger. I had dreams. I wanted to travel. I wanted to write stories. I wanted to open a small bookstore with coffee and flowers near the door. I forgot those dreams when I married Henry. I stopped thinking about myself. I gave everything to that marriage, but it was never enough for him. Now, sitting on the floor with those letters, I cried again. But this time, the tears felt different. They weren't for Henry. They were for the girl I used to be, the girl who believed in something better. The next day, I took off my wedding ring. I placed it in a small box and closed the lid. I didn't throw it away, but I didn't wear it anymore. It was time to begin again. Weeks passed. Then one day, something unexpected happened. I saw Henry. It was at the supermarket. I was picking up milk and fruit after work. I turned the corner, and there he was, standing by the bread. He looked the same. A little tired, maybe, but still the same Henry. He saw me and froze. "Haley," he said. "Hi," I answered. My voice was quiet, but my heart was loud. He walked over slowly. "You look good." "Thanks," Ade said. "How are you?" He shrugged. "Same. You living with Madison?" "Yes," said. "Still at the school?" He looked down, then up again. "I didn't think you'd leave so fast." I didn't reply. "I've been thinking," he said. "Maybe we gave up too early." I looked at him carefully. The same eyes. The same voice. But my heart didn't move. Not the way it used to. "I didn't give up," I said. "I stayed until there was nothing left." He didn't know what to say. "I tried, Henry." "You didn't want to try." He nodded. "Yeah, I know." We stood there in silence. I felt strange. Not angry. Not sad. Just done. He said, "Well, good seeing you." "You too," I replied, then turned and walked away. That night, I felt something new. Peace. He didn't hold power over me anymore. A few weeks later, Madison told me she was moving in with her boyfriend. She said I could stay at the apartment, but I didn't want that. I needed a place that was mine, a space where I could start again. So I found a small studio near the school. It had one room, one bathroom, and a tiny kitchen. The walls were white. The floors were old wood. I bought a second-hand sofa and a cheap rug. I found 2 plants at a market. I named them Lucy and Fern. It felt silly, but I smiled every time I watered them. The first night alone in my new place, I felt scared. What if I made another mistake? What if I was always alone? But then I remembered the girl in the letters. She wasn't afraid of starting over. I painted the walls light blue. I bought soft pillows. I started writing again. Just small stories. A girl and her dog. A woman who finds a message in a bottle. Nothing big, but it made me happy. At work, I felt lighter. I smiled more. I laughed at the jokes the students made. I said yes when people asked if I wanted to join them for lunch. I said no when I needed rest. I didn't tell people about Henry unless they asked. Some co-workers knew. One of them, Emily, came to my desk one day. "I heard you went through something hard," she said gently. I nodded. "I did." She gave me a small cookie and said, "You're doing better than you think." I smiled. That meant a lot. One day, I saw a flyer in the library. A writing class was starting at the community center, Tuesday nights. I stood and stared at the flyer for a long time. My hands felt warm. My heart beat fast. I took the flyer. The class had 7 people, some older, some young. The teacher's name was Mr. Dean. He wore glasses and loved books. He smiled at me and said, "Everyone here has a story. Don't be afraid to share yours." That night, I wrote about my wedding day. I wrote about the rain, the blue dress, the cold pizza. I read it out loud. My voice shook, but I finished. When I looked up, the others were quiet. Then one woman said, "That was beautiful." Another man said, "It felt real." I almost cried, but I didn't. I just said, "Thank you." I started going to class every week. I wrote about my past, but also about hope, about soft mornings, strong women, and second chances. It felt like coming home. One evening after class, I stayed behind to clean up. Mr. Dean said, "You have a gift?" I smiled. "I just write from the heart." He nodded. "That's the best way." Outside Amna, the night was cold, but I felt warm. I walked home with the stars above me and a story in my bag. I didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of tomorrow. 3 months after I started the writing class, something happened that changed everything again. Mr. Dean gave each of us a note after class one night. Mine said, "Your story made someone cry. In a good way. Keep writing." I smiled all the way home. The next day, I wrote for 2 hours straight. I didn't check the time. I didn't look at my phone. I just wrote. When I finished, I looked around my little studio. There was a soft light from the window. My plants were still green. My heart felt quiet. I whispered to myself, "You're okay, Haley." Soon, I started sharing some of my stories online. I made a small blog. At first, only Madison read it. Then, a few strangers left comments. "This feels like my life," one person wrote. "Thank you for writing this." I didn't know them, but their words felt like warm hands on my back. I started to believe maybe my voice mattered. One Saturday morning, I went to the bookstore downtown. I liked walking through the quiet aisles and touching the book covers. I saw a small group sitting in the corner. They were reading poetry out loud. A woman smiled at me and said, "Want to join?" I sat down. I didn't read anything that day, but I listened. Their words were soft, but full of feeling. I felt at home there. The next week, I came back with one of my short pieces. My hands were shaking, but I read anyway. After I finished, a man across from me said, "That sounded like truth." That man's name was Daniel. He had kind eyes and wore a gray sweater. He looked about my age. After the group ended, he waited by the door. He said, "You have a strong voice." "Thank you," I said. "I like your writing," he added. "I liked yours too," I replied, even though he hadn't read anything that day. He smiled. "Maybe next time." We started talking after each session. Nothing big, just small things. Books, music, coffee shops. He was easy to talk to. He listened without interrupting. He never rushed his words. After 3 weeks, he said, "Would you like to get coffee sometime?" I paused. My heart felt nervous, but not afraid. "Yes," I said. "I'd like that." We met at a small cafe near the river. It had big windows and soft chairs. We talked for 2 hours. I told him about my blog. He told me he was learning to write after a hard breakup. He said, "Writing helps me heal." I said, "Me too." We didn't talk about love. Not that day. But I felt something begin. A door opening slowly, letting in light. Over the next few weeks, we spent more time together. We walked near the water. We sat in parks. We talked about family, pain, and hope. I didn't feel the need to hide anything. He didn't ask for more than I could give. One day, I told him about Henry. "I married young," I said. "I thought I was doing the right thing." He didn't ask for details. He just said, "Thank you for telling me." That was enough. Daniel never rushed me. He never pushed. He always left space. I liked that about him. It made me feel safe. One Sunday, we were walking near a row of small houses. One had flowers in the windows and a wooden sign that said, "Storytime Cafe." I stopped and stared. "That's the kind of place I used to dream about," I said. "What kind of place?" he asked. "A bookstore and coffee shop together. Small, quiet, full of light. I used to want to open one." He looked at the building. "Maybe that dream isn't gone." I shook my head. "It's just a dream." Daniel looked at me. Dreams don't die. Sometimes they wait. Those words stayed with me. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the girl I used to be. The girl who wrote letters, who wanted more. Maybe that girl was still inside me. I started saving money. Just a little at a time. I looked at small shops for rent. I talked to Madison. She said, "I believe in you." That was all I needed. After 6 months, I found a tiny space near the school. It used to be a bakery. It smelled like cinnamon and warm bread. I signed the papers with shaking hands. Daniel helped me paint the walls. Madison helped me choose books. My mom even visited and gave me an old lamp for the front table. "For light and hope," she said. I called the place Haley's Pages. We opened on a sunny Tuesday. The first customer was a little girl holding her father's hand. She picked out a book with a dog on the cover. I gave her a cookie and said, "Come back anytime." I didn't make much money at first, but I didn't care. People came to read, to talk, to sit quietly. I wrote between customers. I smiled every day. For the first time in years, I felt proud of something I built with my own hands. Daniel came by often. Sometimes he brought flowers, sometimes just a warm smile. He read to kids on Saturday mornings. He helped fix a broken shelf. He never asked for anything in return. One evening, as we locked the door together, he said, "You built this from nothing." I smiled. "No, I built it from pain." He looked at me gently and turned it into beauty. I didn't know what the future would bring. Maybe we would fall in love. Maybe not. But I was no longer scared. I was not the girl who ran away from home to be a wife. I was the woman who left a cold home and made a warm one.